Welcome to this very special edition of Poets Without Borders talk show. It's an FB Live. Supposedly, we are doing it on Zoom for the first time. So, dear friends, welcome on this platform too. It's just a new way of reaching out, and I hope that you will enjoy our talk. We have a very special guest tonight. You have met her earlier in some of the Poets Without Borders events. And she's a very famous personality, quite a well-known figure. She's the creator and the curator of the Rucksack Project. And there's lots more to say for her introduction, but let me just welcome her first. Antje Stehn.
I can't hear you.
Oh, what happened? But you were hearing me fine.
Now I hear you. Now I hear you.
Okay. So should we do again?
Yeah, anyway, we have to cut away at the beginning. Start again.
Okay, so hello and welcome, dear friends, to this special edition of Poets Without Borders FB Live talk show. Actually, we are doing it on Zoom for the very first time because we had some problem with the StreamYard. Apologies for that. And we are back and we will be here one way or the other. I hope you will enjoy us here as well. And we will continue to do this. So we have somebody very special with us today. Antje Stehn, ma'am, is joining us from Italy, an esteemed poetess from Germany. You all are familiar with her. But before I introduce her, let me just very warm welcome to you, ma'am, Antje Stehn.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this great occasion to be interviewed by you, Pankhuri.
Oh, thank you. That is very kind of you. And it is my pleasure and honor. And it is wonderful to be talking to you. We all are familiar with her. She's a creator, the curator of the Rucksack Project. We will talk about that project at length. It's something so interesting, dear friend. She had poets send her strange bags of, strange as in amazing, beautiful bags of tea sachets, right? And it is displayed in this lovely museum called the Little Museum of Poetry, along with poems being exhibited from all over the world from time to time. It's a wonderful art project. She will talk about it at length. She's a very gifted poetess herself, but there is a side of her that we all don't know about so much because she doesn't display it so much either on Facebook or on other platforms of social media. So she's a very gifted painter as well. So I thought, why not begin with asking her about her painting journey? So tell us about that, Tell us about your passion for painting.
Yeah, the passion is in reality an old time passion. I started as a painter and I worked for many years with galleries, doing big exhibitions. And so I made, I think, about 4,000 paintings, small one, big one. So I had a long, long way going through painting. And I came to a point that I had to stop and do something else. I think in life, one has to do different things. And so the painting now is something of my past, but it's still present because people like them and I'm still selling my paintings. So, and they are also on my wall, but my artistic work is going into sculpture, natural sculptures with natural material, and in poetry, to poetry.
Wonderful, wow. So the lovely painting behind you, is that also a painting by you?
Yes, this is a painting from the series. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Horizon. And you can see an abstract. I always did abstract painting. So you can see somehow abstract wings if you want to interpret it. And Because when I worked with paintings, when I painted, I always worked on special subjects. And this, for example, I worked together with a poet, actually. And I think she inspired me also to go into words and try out the words. So horizon is something where we all have a perspective. Now, if you have an horizon you can look at, you can walk, you can start your journey somewhere. So we all need horizons. If you don't have a horizon out of your window, you have to find your horizon. You have to go out and see. Everybody has to find his personal horizon where he wants to go.
Absolutely. What a beautiful way of putting it, right? So you have kind of anticipated my next question, or maybe partially even answered it. But these things are so beautiful and complicated to an extent that I want to again ask. Tell us, you said you have been, migrating into sculpture using natural stuff, like tell us a little bit about that, and also exactly when did you first start painting and what themes, I mean, like you said, horizon, and what a beautiful way of seeing it, right, and explaining it, and what other themes and what other artistic movements have influenced you.
Yes, another scene here. I have some small paintings. I don't know if you can see it. This is one. It's from the series which is called the Blue Clay, and it's a series of many pictures which I put in this moment on Instagram because I found out I like them still. And the blue clay is a geological structure under the city of Milan, which is made with shells, sea eagles, all the remains of an ancient sea, because an ocean, because in millions of years before, there was a sea under Milan. And I like the idea that a city is built on the ground of the sea. So, because somehow it connects us to the real far past. Like now I'm at the Lake Como, which is a glacial lake which has 2 million years, but the water, it's 400 meters deep. The water under the 200 meters is still the water of the glaciers, and the people drink this water as drinking water. So it's fascinating, no, to have this relation with a very long past. It makes you feel that you are part of something which is much bigger than you.
Absolutely. And this lake, sorry, you were saying something, go ahead, please finish. And then because you mentioned the lake, I'm so excited.
No, the lake is somehow, it's fascinating, no, that around the lake, also the mountains, they were pushed up, and they pushed up the level of the sea. So yesterday I walked up to 1,200 meters, and you can find the little fossils in the mountains, in the stones, not little fish or little snails or whatever from the sea. So I love this connection.
Wonderful. Now that you, I think, mentioned Lake Como, right?
Yes.
It's something very famous, and it's a very sought after tourist spot, right? I mean, for me, for a person, or for lots of my friends here who have never been to Italy, but when we Google, tourist places in Italy, it shows up in the top 10 destinations, and that is why I mentioned. And when they post the pictures, I mean, it's just amazing. So you live in one of the most beautiful places on this earth, right? Lucky you. And you also have a huge garden there. And I know, because of my spying skills, that you have these beautiful cherry trees and all of that. And you spend beautiful, summer days working on your art, right? So how do you think this whole setting influences you? I mean, you have definitely chosen, you've migrated from Germany. So how does this setting influence you? Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with nature?
Yes. My house is in a small village, which is near the edge to a very rough valley with a very rough waterfall and things like that. And my garden is like a garden that goes to the wild. So I have the fence around, and on the other side you are in the wild, in the forests and with the Rocky Mountains, you can say. The interesting thing is garden in the Indo-European Indo-European language, in the first Indo-European mother language, you can say, they said gordo, and gordo means intertwining. So it's related to the branches that the first agricultures put around their gardens to protect it. So in reality, garden means fence, because somehow it is a border between the wild side and the cultivated side of our societies. And living in this very special place, my house is very old, it's 500 years old, this, the first part of the house. It is somehow this, you can say, dialectic relation, no, between the wild, the uncontrolled, even art. If you are creative, you have to go into the wild, you have to leave all the conventions. You can't be a cultured person that makes art. You're on the other side of the fence. And then you come back to the garden and try to put the things in a certain way. So the garden is for me a metaphor for artistic work.
It is,
And
yeah.
in the end, after the painting, after I stopped my painting career, I started using all the material of the garden for my sculptures. So I don't have to go far away. I use flower seeds, branches, barks or spines of trees, blue balls, whatever I have in the garden.
Wonderful. Wow. So have you had an exhibition of all of these things
Yes.
recently?
Yes, I have more or less 1 or 2 exhibitions a year where I can show these things. And that's important because the relationship with the public, also in art, is one of the things that gives you the push and that gives the satisfaction, because communication, art is communication. So it has to go out. Like poetry is communication, you have to read the poem. Otherwise, it is dead. Nobody will, oh, you have to publish it. No? So it's communication.
Absolutely. And on a very beautiful level, right?
Yes.
Sculptures and paintings. Wow. So hope to attend and see some of these exhibitions someday. Now, before I move on to your poetry, there is a question that acts as a bridge. Any thematic similarities, and you might have also said something about this, between your paintings, your sculptures, and your poetry? Do you
Yeah, I
see
think
continuing?
all expressions of art are like different languages. So as you know, in some languages you can say some things, in others you can't say these things. So also music is a language. They have their particularities. But the subjects I'm working on, in the end, they are very similar. Also from the painting, going to the sculptures and the poems. I started writing poems about my sculptures because I felt the need that I wanted to put into words what I was thinking, so people can get also closer related to my sculptures. So in the end, most of my poems are inspired of the same sort as my sculptures.
Wonderful. Great. And we are going to listen to some of your poems as well. But before that, we are talking about the setting of this beautiful place and all of that. So why don't you first tell us about your love affair with Italy?
That is a long time ago. I came to Italy when I was 18.
Right.
And as many Germans, I mean, there's a big difference in culture between the northern countries and the Mediterranean countries in Europe. And all Germans have the dream to go to Italy. Maybe not even all Germans, everybody in the world wants to go to Italy. From Goethe, he was one of the first who went to travel around Italy and wrote down his big book, Voyage to Italy. And so me too, I came here and I got so fascinated of the way people communicate with you, of the way these really old villages, everywhere you can go into the past, and wherever you go, you discover things that are fascinating. Monasteries, pictures, paintings. I mean, Italy, I think, is a country with the biggest cultural heritage, because they have museums that never show those things because they don't have the place. And so it's a country you can stay all life long to discover new things, I think.
Wonderful. Great. Now, you have a very beautiful poem on this topic, right? Do you want to, your also your love affair with Italian language and German, and it's very interesting that you are a German, your mother tongue is German. Of course, your English is wonderful, but you write in Italian, right? So, do you want to also talk about that?
Yeah, this is very interesting because if you start living in another country, you start thinking in the other language. And since I started my poetry activity in Italy, I started writing in Italian. But now I also write in German, of course. So because I can really express different things in German than in Italian, because the languages are very different. I mean, Italian is a Latin language and German is not. And so the cultural difference you can see in the languages. No, Italian is a very warm language. The people are warm. No, they are communicative, also exaggerated with the emotions. And the Northern Germans, because I come from Northern Germany, that's the coldest part for the emotions. No, we are very self-controlled and very strict. We come from Protestant religion, no, the Protestanti. So they are very, you can't show your emotion. This is not permitted. So it's exactly the contrary. And you can see it in the language. So I would like to read you this poem about my two languages and how you live in this thing. So the linguistics, they call L1, your mother tongue with which you grew up, and L2, the language that you learned later, but is somehow the second language. So living in two languages. My second language, L2, is like a pillar in a wall, undecided between singing or reciting, warm and emotional. The children go to their teeny weeny beds, lettucci. They listen to petite night stories, storielle, and eat little pieces of chocolate, cioccolatini. A rain is a drizzle, a pioggerellina, and nobody knows how many drops it takes to make it grow until it becomes large enough to leave its parents' home and make its own living. It's unpredictable language. As a telephone network, the rates change from day to day. Suddenly everything accelerates. The child turns into a bad child, bambinaccio, and the day becomes a horrible day, a giornataccio. My native language, L1, is somewhat timid and shy and slowly comes out in a low voice, as if it had finally unbuttoned a jacket, uncomfortable and much too tight. It only speaks when it can't be avoided. Even simple words sound like some important declaration. They're words I cannot say, words weighed down by history, like Heimat, Volk, Nation, for they caused enormous headache. Every morning, my first and my second language mix inside my mouth like toothbrush and toothpaste. Confident of our fresh breaths, we go outside the house. My first language puts on the nose and mouth protection. My second, the little mask, la mascherina, as if life was an eternal carnival.
Danke. Beautiful. So,
Yeah.
very beautiful poem. I'm not going to comment and take away the beauty of it, because sometimes it just reduces the magic. But for somebody like myself, who's also very bilingual, I can really relate to this. This last stanza is especially, very, very powerful. And like you said, that once you live in another country, you start thinking in that language and you start living in that language. And I would like to put it like this, that too much happens in that language, so it becomes a part of your life. But anyways, having said that, I also want to say something. You said a lot about German, right? That Italian is a Latin language and German is not. I took some German lessons, so I can say like danke, as in the German word for thank you.
Danke.
What is the German word for beautiful?
Schön.
My God, that's a tough one. Schön?
Schön.
Schön. Okay, so we'll rehearse it later.
Yeah, but for example, this is a difference, no? In Italy, everybody says bello, bellissimo, nice, beautiful. Every day you use it hundreds of times, this word. In German, to say schön, it must be really something special. So it's really interesting.
See, that is very beautifully defined. And you know what? I am going to say this. You're a very warm person. You're a very large-hearted poet. I've said this more than once. But generally, that is a difference between, I think, some people as it is. I was going to say the East and the West, but no, I'm not going to say that, because lately that also has become. But yeah, I get that point, and that's a wonderful point. But anyways, my fascination with either German history, Martin Luther, as you said, Protestantism, and any of it, be it the town of Hamburg, it's just endless. It's just, it has to do with lots of things. But I also wrote my MA entrance paper on German history, Renaissance in Germany. Yeah, but all of that is besides. But yeah, this is just, so we are actually on the same topic, and yet I want to discuss a little more, because I'm also a history student, and for everybody who loves languages and who loves poetry, it is also nicer and important to understand the cultural settings from which they come. So you explained it very beautifully, and yet the cultural differences and the similarities between the two cultures, because they are almost neighbors, they're not too far away, and one would think that there are similarities as well. Do you want to say something about this more?
Similarities. If a German drinks a glass of wine, he becomes Italian. So, I mean, the Germans must get a little bit more relaxed, and of course they are also very happy and people that are very lively and so on. But you have to warm a German up, because we are in a cold climate. I just came back from Germany, 10 days of rain. So this, of course, affects your psyche. But what I wanted to say, the interesting thing is, for me, I'm not German and not Italian, or I'm both. Let's say I'm a hybrid, no? And somehow this is a thing that in Germany, in my family, for example, we have 4 brothers and sisters, and we have, I am married to an Italian, my brother's married to a Brazilian, the other to a Turkish woman, my sister's married to a Chilean. So we have about 5 mother languages in the family. And this is very interesting, because the next generation combines positive things from both cultures. And I think this is the future, and this should be the future, that the people fuse and come together, mix up, learn from each other. And this will be the future, although the European countries are so scared also now with the Afghanistan problem. The first thing they do, build up walls. It's so ununderstandable for me. It's terrible.
But what a beautiful, congratulations on that, and I'm so happy that you met and reunited in a big way. But you know what you said in the very beginning, if a German drinks a glass of wine, he becomes Italian or she becomes Italian. The one sentence that I remember complete in German from my German lessons is that Ich trinke Bier gern.
Ich trinke gern Bier. Yeah. Ich trinke gern Bier. I love to drink beer. Yes.
I don't like beer. I am a wine person. But that's one German sentence that I remember. But okay. Yes. Now, please tell us about the Rucksack Project. How did you start the Rucksack Project?
Yes, as I told you in my sculptures, I use things I have in the garden. And during the lockdown, I was in Milan, in the city. And somehow I started using the things I find in the house, in the garbage, to do something, no, to get inspired. So I started cutting up banana skins, drying them, make sculptures with the banana skins. And then I found this, I started drinking my tea, and I said, oh, this tea bags could be something interesting. But then straight away I thought, okay, I need lots of tea bags to do whatever I want to do. And the idea to make a rucksack was in my mind for a long time, because the rucksack is also a metaphor for traveling, for moving, to go on, because we have to go on, find new things, see new rounds. So I asked my friends, my poet friends, I had to collect tea bags for me and send them together with a poem. So I had no idea what I was going to do. But during this lockdown, it was very, very tough. You couldn't leave the house without a special permission where you write down, I go shopping and I will be back in 10 minutes. It was like prison for 3 months. People were happy to have a task. So everybody collected, in Germany, they collected so many tea bags. And so it became a very big rucksack, and it spread out on the internet, this idea. And in the end, we are 250 participants with 58 different languages. Also, thanks to Mamta Saga from India, she was one of the first internet connections that was enthusiastic about the project. And she invited 28 Indian poets with 28 different languages. So she represented the whole language, not the whole, I think there are even more languages in India, but she represented a very big, wonderful space in this project. And then the Piccolo Museo della Poesia proposed, let's make an exhibition. This is a big thing, we have to show this. And so we are still going on. New people are integrated, because the interesting thing of this project is that it has become a social work. It is a social interconnection. The people that are involved got connected, new networks came out. And so we are working on a global basis together. And this is, I think it's important and it's wonderful that this art piece could do this. For me, this is the biggest success of the art piece.
Absolutely. And it is, I think, very inspiring for a lot of people around this world like me, because the tea bag represents so much. And to me personally, because I was exiled from from America, and because I could never pack the way I wanted to, I was somewhere else, and I was actually in detention. And my ex-husband packed and put those things in a friend's place to put it in the best way, right? But that's different. But I just remember a quote. I mean, things remind us of things, right? So when I saw a beautiful monument of yours, it's not a monument, but like, let's say a sculpture or a piece of art with the tea bags, right, in that museum. I was remembering something that my professor said. You know, I also did a MA thesis on tea, on the tea trade with
Interesting.
in colonial India, the tea trade that British Empire had with India. Actually, it's a triangular trade with China as well, but you can just do on the dual aspect of it. So, but anyway, so he used to say, each time I used to make a trip between here and America, I used to take tea with me from not necessarily tea bags, but tea leaves.
Yes.
So someday to gift you some packets of that typical indigenous tea leaves that are not in bags, but they're loose, and you actually make them and you strain them, and it's amazing. It's a different taste. I mean, I'm enjoying tea bag right now. I'm enjoying tea bag, but that's different. Anyways, so it's very inspiring in so many ways, and I think that you have found a lot of applause for that. So and beautiful poetry. So great. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit about your favorite poets, the art movements that have influenced your poetry, and also your paintings? You know, your favorite painters.
Yes, somehow, let's say I'm not so much influenced by other poets, but I'm influenced by philosophers because I love to read philosophical books. For example, Bachelard, the French philosopher Gaston Bachelard, he wrote this wonderful book, Philosophy About Spaces. And that makes you understand so many things. And it inspired me. For my first poems were inspired of this book because so many things happened in my head reading this book. And this is what really actually happens. So today I came back to Hans Blumenberg, who is a German philosopher. He was quite isolated from the beginning last century. But he's also writing in a way that it makes you think and it influences your daily way of acting. This is the important thing. I mean, philosophy can be very abstract and can be a wonderful construction, but I like these kinds of philosophers that work on the things an artist works. And they look at the things that normally you don't see, and they try to understand what's going on, what's really going on. And this is what inspires me. So then also writers inspire me. For example, there's a German writer, his name was Arno Schmidt, who is for me, one of the most interesting writers because the German language has this quality: you can invent new words, you can combine words, you can make words that are long 50 meters, and it's still a word because this German has this particularity. And this writer, he has such a fantastic way of putting things that this is an art piece, a pure art piece, whatever he writes. Another one author I really like because he inspires me is Borges, no? George Luis Borges from Argentina.
Yes.
Short stories, they are so condensed that you have to work on it to go on. No, he just puts you something as if he wants to push you somewhere. So these things for me are highly inspiring. So it's not one person, it's the person that push you somewhere.
Great, wonderful. Yes. Now, I'm just very tempted to say, because some of my favorite writers are also from Germany, and they're Nobel winners, like Thomas Mann, like
Yes.
Hermann Hertz, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, and
Yes.
I love them. also, some world famous philosophers, Nietzsche, Heidegger, right?
Yes.
So I think the whole world is, it's whether you spend an entire hour criticizing or disagreeing with Nietzsche, but it's still Nietzsche and nobody gets away from it, right? So,
Yes, they're part of it. Of course, Hesse, let's say it's my childhood. Hesse and Thomas Mann, I somehow in the youth, everybody used to read it. Nowadays, I think less. So that's a basic, no? But then you go on, of
so,
course.
so who are the current like heartthrobs or bestsellers in German literature? Are you in touch with that?
Up
Uh,
to now in these days, oh, I don't know. I'm reading Italian books in this moment, a very big book about Italian history.
mhm.
Delaglio is the name. It's so amazing. It's so rich, but this is a history book. So I know,
Amazing.
yeah.
Now, having talked about so many of your, artistic endeavors, I am going to say that your profession is teaching, right? So, tell us about that. What all do you teach? Do you teach creative writing? Do you teach arts, painting? I mean, what all do you teach?
No, I simply, my teaching, I'm regarding my teaching as a second job, let's say, for the money. My main job is being an artist and working as an artist. This is the main part of my life. But I'm teaching, of course, language teaching, because this is the only thing that you really can do if you're in a foreign country. So I give German lessons and English lessons to children. I have little groups with children. And this is what really I love, because children are so natural and so expressive, and they are just wonderful. So this is a very nice part of my days, when I have these groups and get connected with the life. They are all under 10 years, so they're very small and so clever.
Yes, yes. It's been a beautiful experience even teaching German, because I can imagine because I think languages, if you love them, you work with languages, then that must be also very nice. So wonderful, great. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to ask you about some of your favorite places. You already live in a very beautiful place. You belong to a beautiful place, but name at least five of your favorite places on this earth. And I know that you've traveled far and wide. You've traveled as far as Nepal, and you even told me a story about how you were bitten by an insect, and it gave you a huge insect bite and a swollen foot for a while. But apart from,
Yes,
I mean, what
Nepal, yes.
indomitable spirit. So, adventures included. Tell us about your favorite places.
Yeah, no, of course. My experience in India, Nepal, I went to India 3 times. So altogether, I stayed 1 year in India and 2 months in Nepal, because you couldn't stay longer. And and I was 18, so it was quite a long time ago. And this is things that you will never forget. So Kathmandu and all these places are really, really impressive. And India itself is so big and so rich. I mean, I can't tell you all the adventures I had, but I started painting in India, I must say, because there were so strong impressions that I got nervous. I couldn't digest it. So I went there with a girlfriend, and she was very good in drawing. And she said, let's sit down and draw this. And so I started drawing too, and did watercoloring and things like that. So
Wow.
actually, I did, I think, 100 paintings, little paintings, my Indian diary. And
Uh-huh.
when I exhibited it, when I came back to Hamburg, this was a push and said, okay, I think I'm going to make art. This is the thing. So India for me is the starting point, let's say. And I'm so happy to have these wonderful contacts back to my old life. So
Yes, Wow, that is something to be proud of, for us as well. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I haven't been to Kathmandu yet. It's in the neighborhood. But, and I haven't been to so many places in India. So maybe next time you come,
Yeah, we can do a trip around again.
great, wonderful.
But at that time, it was very difficult also to travel. I remember we even had to travel on the roof of the train to get somewhere because it was so overcrowded and we didn't understand why. What happens? So we went on the roof and we traveled the whole night on the roof.
An adventure. That's a typical picture of India, and I hate to say this, but in lockdown, when the migrant laborers were coming back, I mean, that was a very sorry and worrying picture. People just cramped, not just on the roof, but even inside carriages, and God knows what has happened. But I'll just to cheer you up. There is a Hindi film song. I'm going to send you the YouTube link of it later. It's shot on the roof of the train. It's a love song, and they're dancing on,
Yes.
on the roof of the train. It's a very sexy and a very beautiful tune. It's a film about terrorism in Assam, but it's a very beautiful one. So I'll send you that later. But I'm not going to let you go so easily just with naming two places. So you have to tell us one favorite place in Italy, one favorite place in Germany, and one in the rest of the world.
Okay. The one in Italy, oh, Italy is a whole, Italy is my favorite place. But no, because it changes now. I was in Rome this summer, and of course, Rome is unique. It's so special. But I was in Naples, and then in Naples, there are things you can't even imagine. Underground the city, there's another city. Or you go to the islands, or where you have volcanoes, no? Very impressive situations, no? You walk up a volcano, or you come here to the mountains, to the Alps. You have really high mountains with very steep canyons and waterfalls and whatever. And I love Milan. Milan is my town. Everybody says, oh, Milan is not so beautiful, but it's a beauty that is a little bit more hidden, no, against Venice and Florence. Of course, it's a second choice, but for me, it's an enormous city with hundreds of secrets. In Germany, this year I just passed in my birth town, which is Friburgo, and it's a little town in the south of Germany, and it's wonderful. The interesting thing there is that they built a church with a tower. I think it's 130 meters high in the 13th century. And it was the highest tower of the world. So it was very exciting. And the top part was all empty, but with strange structures, no? Gothic style. So, but even 10 years later, there was in France, they built a little bit higher church, and then another place. So somehow already in the 13th century, they had this idea they had to have higher and higher buildings, like nowadays they do with the skyscrapers. So it's
but the churches are just beautiful, I love that Gothic architecture that you're talking about.
Yeah,
but
it's impressive. And
the other place that's very famous in Germany, the Black Forest, right?
Yeah, that's attached to a Friburgo. That's a nice thing. From this little town, you go up the hill and you're in the Black Forest. And my father took me for a 10 days walk through this Black Forest, every day sleeping in one little hut. And it's amazing because it's all wood. You walk for 10 days through the woods. And this is also a very special thing. In Germany, we have lots of woods. No? In Italy, the Romans cut most of the woods for their ships and whatever. And so there are not so many woods like in Germany. It's really part of our living. We are grown up in woods, although we live in cities, no?
Great, great. Wonderful. Yeah, so the forests are famous, right? And no wildfires in Germany, whereas the rest of Europe is uh, dealing with it. So touch wood, right? But uh, I was going to ask you a little delicate question. See, we talked about the rucksack project and everything nice, but you also connect with people who are, facing problems, political problems and stuff like that. You organized readings around the Refugee Day with people, with poets, not people, poets who have not been able to visit their countries, or there were poets whose poems were read uh, while they were in prison. Um, have you ever kind of faced any challenges organizing these things? How do you put it all together? Would you like to share some inside stories about that? Um, would you be able to tell us about these? Like there was a poet who was being talked about who was in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah,
And
Ashraf Fayyad.
right, and he's still serving a sentence, and it looks like he's not out of prison.
No,
Uh,
unluckily he's still there.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important as an artist to take position. That's our task. We have to confront ourselves with what's going on in the world. In fact, I'm in the PEN, in the German PEN, which is the organization which was founded by the German writers that had to immigrate during the Nazi fascism. And this organization still organizes lots of things, especially for persecuted poets, writers, or cultural activists. And together with the PEN and together with Letters of Wings, which is the organization of one of our rucksack promoters, Viviane, we organized this Refugee Day in Ireland. And some of our rucksack poets, like Ashraf Fayyad, he is from the beginning part of the project, connecting indirectly. He can't even have internet, but because he's still in prison. But we also have Tenzin Tsunsi, who is a Tibetan poet, who is now doing a long trip around the Himalaya to serve the awareness of people for the Tibetan problem that's never solved. We had Amin Wahidi, who is a poet of our rucksack. He is from the Hazare minority in Afghanistan, which is exactly in this moment really under threat, because this is an ethnic group in Afghanistan which is a little bit more open. They are Shiite of religion, and the women, for example, have much more rights in this group. So the governor of their region was a woman. Now she had to flee, I think, even. And the Taliban's go especially to these zones where the Hazare live, and they are so repressive and so violent. It's really a disaster.
Right.
Yeah, it's I mean, you can't even imagine what it means, no? If you from one day to the other, you're deprived of everything.
I hope it gets there. We have an echo problem because of something. But anyways, can I also ask you, getting a little insight, if you don't mind, this poet friend of yours, Ashraf, who is in prison in Saudi Arabia,
Yes.
charged with?
He was accused of denigrating the religion, but this is without any reason. And he was even condemned to death penalty, and then it's changed into 7 years of prison, and I think 2,000 lashes beats. So really terrible thing. And he is writing as he's Palestinian origin, but he was a refugee. He grew up in Saudi Arabia. So these conditions that for us are nearly not imaginable. On this meeting we had also it's on the 20th of June is the Refugee Day. We had two blockers because nowadays things go through internet, and there was Raif Badawi from Saudi Arabia also. He is a blocker who just says what he thinks, and he's also imprisoned for a long time already. And from Bangladesh, Anaya Azad, he had to go away from his country because officially you can say what you want, it's a democracy, but the Muslim brothers are very strong organized, and they were menacing him, and so he had to go, and he found refugee in Germany. So I think the problem in this world is really that more and more people are persecuted for just saying their thoughts. And this is horrible, and somehow I don't know what we can do, but at least we can show that these things exist and bring this to consciousness of the people.
Absolutely. And talk about the right to express ourselves. But that is so painful that he's not even from Saudi Arabia. He's a Palestinian, and I hope that he gets out soon and somehow gets past the lashes, and maybe he can come out of Saudi Arabia and maybe migrate to the West in some way. So good wishes. And anyways, so any message that you would want to give on, or you want to share your thoughts on what poetry should be, and in what all directions should it have the freedom to go?
Yeah, maybe I read just a poem about this. I mean, poetry has, maybe you understand what I mean when I read this poem. Let us see. It could happen. It could happen that some points form a line, that grains of sand form a heap, that moments become authentic life. It could also happen that a period ends a sentence, that a grain of sand makes a dune move, that a single sentence in the underground of a big city becomes the beginning of a love story.
Wonderful. And you have one more very beautiful poem. We talked so much about Milan, your hometown, if I may say so. Now, do you want to also read us that poem?
Yes, it is maybe a little bit difficult to understand who doesn't know Milan, because Milan used to be occupied from the Austrians for 200 years. And the Austrians brought a special bread to Milan that is called the Kaiser's roll, the emperor's roll. But in Milan, the climate is very humid and you have lots of fog. So this kind of bread, it got rotten straight away. So the bakers from Milan, they had the invention, they took out the inside of the bread, and the outside remains the same. So we have the emperor's roll, but it's empty inside. So for me, this is a very nice metaphor also of this city. And this bread is called miketa. Where do you find a city with handrails that design floral fields in their shadows? Peacocks and angels made of concrete on the edges of the houses. Here the tram carries a crown on its head. The little dogs are dressed up, and when it rains, people carry them under their arms, like under their umbrellas. A place full of satisfaction, like the final of a great pleasure. Yet still the bread is light, carefully emptied from the inside, like the hard shell of a turtle, while someone dies of starvation in an empty tunnel below the train. Yeah, this is a contradiction of one of the richest cities in Europe, with all the finance and the fashion and everything is in Milan, but there are lots of poor people too, and there's a social injustice that is very striking.
And visible.
Yes.
Exactly, just like New York, right?
Yeah, and maybe New York is worse. Maybe New York is worse.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. And that is what life is, that we are dealing with so much inequality, so much injustice. And, thank you for sharing your precious thoughts on the directions in which poetry should go. May there be more love. If there will be more love, there will be more justice, right? So thank you for all of that. If there is any message you want to share with your dear friends and your fans and well-wishers, people who admire you, anything to do, anything about colors, because, I can see the beauty of the way you've painted right behind you, anything about words, languages. I'm asking this, having asked you so many questions, because I think that you have always amazing things to say. So one more.
Yeah, now, first of all, I want to thank you, Pankhuri, for this long interview and letting me talk about all these things. And everybody who had the patience to listen, I thank you that you were here with us. And all our friends, poet friends that we got to know through these internet connections and the Rucksack Project. I wish that we will go on and that we will create lots of other things and do our creative life, which helps. Be creative really helps to go on. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you to you, and such a pleasure and honor to have you here. And just want to let you know that you're such an inspiration, and I think lots of people feel that in so many ways, because you send such warm vibes, of energy, of inspiration, of this artistic aura. So it was wonderful to spend this time with you and to have you talk about all of these things. What a privilege. So thank you again for taking time for us. Thank you so much, dear friends, for listening to us. And please let us know what all you thought of this discussion and what all questions you have. We will be waiting for that as well. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Antje, all over again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Pankhuri.